Hello everyone, this is Mr. Smith here. I hope everybody is doing well and is staying safe and healthy. Today is Wednesday, April 22nd, and we're going to be looking at dividing with decimals. Our learning targets for today are: I can use long division to find the quotient of two whole numbers when the quotient is not a whole number, which basically means that I can divide two whole numbers and my answer is going to have a decimal place. And then I can divide a decimal by a whole number, and I can find the quotient or answer to a division problem of two decimals. In your warm-up today, it said find the quotient 465 divided by 5, 924 divided by 12, and 1107 divided by 3. So here I have your 465 divided by 5. So 5 goes into 4 0 times. So I put a 0, there's my placeholder just so I don't get lost when I'm doing my long division. If you want on your paper, if you were doing this on a piece of paper, and all you have is notebook paper, you can turn your notebook paper to the side. So instead of the lines going horizontally, you can have the lines going vertically to help you line up your numbers. So looking at this problem here, 5 doesn't go into 4, so I put 0 up there, but 5 goes into 46 9 times. 9 times 5 is 45, so I subtract it and get 1. And then I bring down my 5, so 5 goes into 15 3 times. 3 times 5 is 15, I subtract them and I get 0, so I'm done. So I have an answer of 93, and just to check it to make sure my answer is correct, I do 93 times 5. So 5 times 3 is 15, 5, carry the 1. 5 times 9 is 45, plus 1 is 46. This 465 matches that 465, so it is correct. That's why the check mark's here. Here's an example for 924 divided by 12. This one's a little bit more involved. So because we have a double-digit number as our divisor on the outside. So 12 doesn't go into 9, so I put my 0, but 12 does go into 92 7 times. 7 times 12 is 84. I subtract those. In order to subtract them, I have to borrow from the 9 to make that 2 a 12. 12 minus 4 is 8. 8 minus 8 is 0. Then I bring down my 4. 12 goes into 84 7 times, so 7 times 12 is 84. 84 minus 84 is 0. So I have an answer of 77, and here I go and check it. Now, there's some problems I've seen in the past of people when they're checking these problems, when they're doing this multiplication with double digits. Make sure you take this first digit in your ones position and you multiply it by everything in the top. So 2 times 7 is 14. I put the 4 down here. I bring my 1 up. Then I take this 2 and multiply it by that 7 as well. So 2 times 7 is 14, plus 1 is 15. I add my 0 placeholder because I'm done with that 2. And I'm looking at my tens place. Then I take that 1 and multiply it by everything up top. So 1 times 7 is 7. 1 times 7 is 7. I add these together. I get 4 plus 0 is 4. 5 plus 7 is 12. 2 carry the 1. 1 plus 7 is 9. That matches what we initially started out with as our dividend, so this is correct. Oops, sorry. For the last one, 3 into 1107, 3 goes in there 369 times, and you can see how I went about solving that. And I took my 369, multiplied it by 3, and I got 1107, which matches what we have on the inside as our dividend. You also had a number talk to do. Now, 400 divided by 8 was the expression you had, and that equals 50. The way I look at this is I figure out 8. It's hard to look at this 400 and know exactly how many times 8 goes into it. But if I cover up this 0 and I just look at how many times 8 goes into 40, I know 8 goes into 40 5 times evenly. So I put my 5, and then I have my 0 left over, so 8 goes into 40 50 times. 80 divided by 8 is 10. Should be fairly simple for most of you guys to figure that one out. 16 divided by 8 is 2. Again, 8 goes into 16 2 times. And I know my multiplication facts that 8 times 2 is 16. Now, 496 divided by 8 equals 62. The easiest way that I would figure this one out, if you look at 480 and 16, if we add those three numbers up, we get 496. Since this 8 did not change, I can add up the answers, 5 plus 10 plus 2, and I get 62. Kind of saved me a little bit of work on this last one, trying to figure out how many times 8 goes into 496. Now, we have some examples here of dividing whole numbers that result in a decimal number. So that first learning target. How are we going to figure out, what are we going to do to figure out 22 divided by 5? Because 5 does not go into 22 evenly. So set it up as long division. 5 goes into 2 0 times. 5 goes into 22 4 times. So 22 minus, or 4 times 5 is 20. So 22 minus 20, and you get 2. You add a decimal point, and as soon as you add that decimal point, you need to bring it right on up into your answer, so that way you don't lose place of where your numbers are supposed to go. You add your 0, bring it down. 5 goes into 24 times. 4 times 5 is 20. I subtract them, I get 0. So my final answer is 4 4/10. Now, I know a lot of you guys are used to the big number being on the inside, the little number being on the outside when you set up your division. If you look at the way this is laid out, 7 divided by 8, that first number is always going to go on the inside no matter how big it is. And the second number is always going to go on the outside no matter how big it is. So we had to put the 8 on the outside because that was the second number. That's our divisor. That's what we're dividing by. So 8 goes into 7 0 times. So I had to put my decimal, and I brought it right up to my answer. 8 goes into 70 8 times. So 8 times 8 is 64. I subtract those and I get 6. Since I had something left over, I have to keep going. So I have to add another 0 and bring it down. So 8 goes into 60 7 times. 7 times 8 is 56. I subtract those, I get 4. Still have something left over, so I have to add another 0 and bring that down. 8 goes into 40 5 times. 5 times 8 is 40. I subtract those, I get 0. Now that since there's nothing left over, my answer is, I'm finished, and my answer is 875 thousandths. Now this is kind of looking at the last two learning targets. And we have 3 divided by 0.12 or 12 hundredths. And looking at that one, because the 12 hundredths is second, that's going to be our divisor, that's on our outside. The 3 is our first number, so that's going to go on the inside. Now, we need to make this a whole number in order to do the division properly. To do that, we have to multiply it by 100 because I have to move that decimal 2 times, and there's 2 zeros in 100. So however many times you have to move your decimal, that's the number that you're going to multiply it by a power of 10 that has that many zeros. So 12 hundredths times 100 is 12. And whatever I do to the outside, I have to do to the inside. So 3 times 100 is 300. I go and follow my division, and I end up with 25. So my answer is 25. Now, here we have a decimal divided by a decimal. So we have our 1.8 is our first number, so that's going to go on the inside. That's our dividend. And 0.004 or 4 thousandths is our divisor. It's our second number, so that's going to go on the outside. I have to move my decimal 3 times, so I'm going to multiply by 1,000 because 1,000 has 3 zeros. So if I do that, I'm going to get 4. Whatever I do to the outside, I have to do to the inside. So 1.8 or 1 8/10 times 1,000 will give me 1,800. I follow my division, and I end up with 450. Make sure your divisor is always a whole number, so you're going to have to multiply to make that divisor a whole number. Okay? Your next activity is you have a Desmos activity, a discussion board post on the Desmos activity, and the discussion board post is going to be based on this second slide on the Desmos activity. So make sure you remember your answers from that in order to do your discussion board post. If you have to write them down, that's great. Make sure you're specific with your discussion board post. And you explain your answer fully so we know exactly what you're talking about without having to look back at that Desmos. Then division with decimals, check your understanding, or check for understanding. So you're going to do an activity where you're going to have to answer some division questions. Some of them are just problems, some of them are word problems. The honor students, you have an activity to do as well, and then there's an additional activity for you guys to try. Remember, you can contact us if you have any questions. My office hours are Monday through Friday from 2 to 3:30. Mrs. Tyler's office hours are Monday through Friday from 9 to 10:30. You're going to access this through Zoom. There's a link in Schoology in the 6th grade staff office hours folder for both Mrs. Tyler and myself. You can use this time to ask for help on the assignments or how to navigate through Schoology to access or submit assignments. You can also use this time if you just want to talk to us, just want to stop by and say, hey, how you doing? Or you can email us either through our school email, or you can send a message through Schoology to Mrs. Tyler or myself. Again, I hope you guys do well on this, and if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. We are here to help you as much as possible. Talk to you guys later. Bye.